This is Alan from Alpus Group, and I'm going to talk to you today about why purchase lease options are a good option for both seller and buyer. So purchase lease options can apply to any sort of property. Usually they apply to residential properties, but they could apply to commercial properties or mixed-use properties. So what exactly is a purchase lease option? Well, a purchase lease option is an agreement between a seller and a buyer that the purchaser will lease the property for a certain period of time, during which they will exercise an option whether to buy or possibly not. So they've got the right to buy at an agreed price, but they haven't got the obligation to buy. So why is this advantageous to both the seller and the buyer? Well, the advantage for the seller is that they are sure that during the time period of the purchase lease option, they will get an agreed price for their property. Secondly, in the interim, they will also receive a monthly lease payment. So they're getting the price that they wanted for the property, plus they're getting rental income effectively for the property. Also, depending on the heads and terms of the agreement, the purchaser will undertake the maintenance for the building. So the purchaser is taking over the building and has use of it, so they're controlling the building and they're responsible for the maintenance. And essentially, in a time where property prices are depressed, it's possible that a seller can negotiate a higher selling price up front because they're not selling immediately, they're selling at a point in the future. So as long as both the seller and the buyer agree on the time period and agree on the amount of money to be paid for the purchase eventually, and they agree on the lease amount, this is actually a win-win for the seller as well as the buyer. So the seller gets an agreed price, which they know about up front in advance of the agreement being signed, and they also get a rental payment which they can rely on during the period of the lease. So if the purchase lease option is 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, they know that they can rely on that lease income amount from the purchaser. That's the fundamental heads of terms of the agreement. Looking at it from the buyer's point of view, the buyer gets to purchase the property not at a below market value level, but at an agreed level, which could be realistic in the future. You know, we're talking about exercising an option at a point in time in the future, and there's an element of uncertainty about whether prices will go down or whether they'll go up. So as long as the purchaser and the seller agree on the price to be paid and they agree on the lease amount to be paid, the seller can hand over the building to the new owner under the purchase lease option, and the new owner can exercise the option within the time period as agreed, or they could choose not to exercise the option, in which case the lease option expires and the building gets returned to the seller in a condition no worse than it was handed over to the buyer in the first place. So there's a win-win in this situation. The new buyer will undertake the maintenance for the property. The new buyer has control of the property, so they can do anything they want to with the property. They can increase its value if they wish to do so. The seller absolves themselves of responsibility for the building, and as long as they're making money from the lease income, they know they'll get a predetermined amount for the purchase once the purchase lease option is exercised. So this is just a a brief overview of purchase lease options and why they're advantageous for both sellers and purchasers. And we at Alpus Group will be happy to consider any properties that you wish to dispose of using purchase lease options. It's something that we're in favour of, and we'll gladly discuss any proposals that you might have for buildings for sale, either residential or commercial or mixed use, or it could even be land with development potential. We'll look at this from the point of view of a purchase lease option. If you want to speak to me about any of the foregoing, then call Alan on 07539 141257 or 0333 224 1257. You can schedule a call with me at calendly.com, or you can drop me an email at alan@alpusgroup.com. Cheers for now.